All right, let's get started. Everyone, hello. Um, Welcome all for joining in today. Today's session is about breaking the barrier, transitioning to AI ML roles from diverse backgrounds. Um, a little bit about me. This is Abhinav. I work as a senior product manager for AI courses at Interview Kickstart. I'll be moderating the session today. I have an expert panel I'll introduce in a while. Um, Primarily, I work with many hiring managers and industry experts from tier one companies to design these outcome-based online programs. And primarily, I have been working mainly focused on AI ML programs for past 3 years now, right? So let's get started. This is the agenda for today. Primarily the session is going to be an AMA session or a panel discussion around the theme of breaking into AI ML or pathway to transitioning to AI ML or leveraging AI ML into your role. Um, that this is the outline. This is some of the context setting that we will do for the session. So I'll quickly share some recent updates from the industry trends. How can you leverage MLA in your role? How have people embraced it basis the point in career they are, insights from the job roles. And as I said, primarily we'll be taking your questions in, and our experts will be answering those questions, right? And towards the end, we'll also see how Interview Kickstart can play in a role in your transformative journey. This is the panel we have. We have Marina. She's an applied scientist at Amazon. We have Praveen, a product leader at Rafe. He has also led teams, the product and TPM teams at Meta and Microsoft. Talking about their own transformative journey, Marina has transitioned from a non-STEM background. Her education background was in political science and master's in public policy. And from there, she has upskilled herself and transitioned to applied scientist to Amazon. Similarly, Praveen had a background in cloud and DevOps, cloud solutions and DevOps. From there, made a transition as a product leader, primarily focusing on AI ML products. Right? So they'll be sharing the insights from their own transformative journey, and then what made them, first of all, embrace MLAI, and then how it is going, and then the overall journey, the challenges, and the steps they have taken for their transitioning. So some logistics about the session. Obviously, the session we will make it interactive, so you can post your questions in Q&A, and we'll be looking at them one by one. You can raise your hand if you wish to speak up or you have any follow-up questions. You'll have to wait for your turn, and then we'll unmute you and take your questions. So before we get started, I would request every attendance or joinees to put it in the chat, their name, their current job role, the location and company, just for us to learn a little bit about you, your demographics, and which direction basically we'll have more and more questions and etc., giving some context for everybody in the panel, right? So I would request the attendees to please quickly introduce themselves in the chat, dropping in your name, your role, your location, and your company. So we have Jagdeep from Engineering Manager, San Jose, Cisco. Thank you, Anil, Sumita. Welcome to the session. Thanks, Archit, Ashwini. Bhaskar, thanks. Thank you all for joining in. Thanks for putting in your introductions. Thank you all for putting in the in your introduction. Please keep going on if you haven't. And in the meanwhile, I'll just move forward and set up the rest of the context, right? Before going in further, I mean, this question can let's address this one, right? Why should I even try to upskill into MLAI, and what are the opportunities for me in MLAI? right? So in terms of, let's say, the job opportunities that we seen, the market trend we have seen in especially last 1.5 year, right? Despite the economic challenges across all domains, MLAI has seen a significant boost, and largely it was fueled by all the development all the development that happened in the large language model or generative AI space, right? So as a job market, MLAI has held quite strong, and as we have seen quite a significant growth over there for these jobs. There have also been a shift in the traditional jobs, trying to adapt AI/ML as more and more companies trying to bring in AI/ML flavor in their products. So they expect their current workforce as well to embrace ML/AI and then be able to participate or contribute to these initiatives, right? To be able to be AI enabled, or to be able to push products in the Gen AI field. So, and that's something you have seen in a lot of news as well. Companies trying to shift focus into AML and then reducing the workforce or reprioritizing their workforce accordingly, right? So now, as a professional, there are various ways in you can leverage MLAI. It's not just you have to, let's say, there is one single path. There are various ways, various scope in which professionals are seeing leveraging MLAI. So the very first bit is, let's say, the core ML roles, right? So this is first two roles we are talking about when you are transitioning to an MLAI positions, right? A role such as a machine learning engineer, a data scientist, or applied scientist, natural language processing engineer, or so on, right? So in terms of, let's say, the first role, which is core ML roles, what we have seen in such roles which are highly common in the industry, right? And because these roles are something which sort of account for the most common ML use cases, right? These are the roles which where people are solving use cases which is across their industry, such as recommendation system, fraud analysis, risk management. And the key skills over here are around data analysis, classical ML, applied generative AI, right? And as I said, because these use cases are such widespread, that's why these kind of roles are which we have seen the most in the market. Then we have the specialized machine learning roles. In these roles, obviously, you have the core ML role, or you have the fundamentals of MLAI, and then you specialized into one specific field. Now, these specific field could be natural language processing, computer vision, or even generative AI, if you then further specialize into one of the text processing or video processing, and then eventually to large language models in the same field, right? So that's the specialized roles which are seen focused on some niche problems or some highly specialized problems, right? Then the very interesting piece is AI-enabled roles. Now, these are the roles, or these are the domains where people are leveraging MLAI into their current work itself, right? So let's say product managers, technical program managers, or solution engineers, engineering managers, and so on. Now, in such roles, as I was sort of mentioning it earlier as well, these are the roles where because of the widespread adoption of AI ML, the current professionals are also, when they are contributing to these initiatives, or contributing or leading these initiatives, some sort of a domain knowledge in AI ML something is required, and that is where these roles are coming into the picture. I'll share some more insights on these AI enabled roles in a while, and then the large idea is that you perform your current domain, such as, let's say, software engineer, product managers, but then have a flavor of MLAI, the domain knowledge of AI/ML, to be able to contribute and collaborate with the team better, and see the larger success of the product, right? In terms of the skills, if you are breaking down the skills, so you have the core ML skills and the specialized ML skills, right? So core ML skills, which are there, as I was mentioning, these are the skills which are highly common because these solve the most use cases till date in the industry, such as the first is basically, obviously, the programming language. Python is the most predominant one. Then your applied understanding, it includes your mathematical intuition, that you have statistics, the classical ML, and then some amount of deep learning you need, let's say, knowledge of neural networks and etc. And then applied knowledge of generative AI. Here, applied generative AI knowledge refers to where you are able to, let's say, utilize some pre-trained generative AI models for for leveraging or for solving complex problems, right? And then on these core ML skills, you build your specializations, let's say NLP, computer vision, generative AI, or large scale ML ops and deployment to solve higher problems or complex problems even further from a particular subdomain. So coming on to the job market insights itself, and especially I'm sharing it from the AI-enabled role part as well, because those kinds of role we have seen quite growing and professionals interested in those, let's say, especially who, let's say, don't want to switch their job roles itself, right? So for this particular piece, we analyze about 1,000+ job descriptions from LinkedIn, and then ran an in-house LLM-based tool on top of that data set to figure out, let's say, how many of those job descriptions are asking for specific AI/ML skills, right? Are calling out those AI/ML skill sets, and then the expected skill set included about 10 to 15% of JDs across roles asking for ML, AI, and Gen AI related skills. And these were the call out, let's say, building application on top of LLMs, creating AI product strategies, good understanding of LLMs, generative AI, RAG guardrails, and so on, right? So the idea is in a good to have section or in a section where it can give you a good competitive edge, these ML, AI, or Gen AI skills were being called out. So these were the survey in snapshot or the snapshot of the job description itself. So on your screen, you can see these are software engineering job domains, and then highlighted portion is where some knowledge of LLMs or LLM application development is being asked, right? So it's a core software engineering role, not a machine learning role. But then within that, how do you utilize LLM APIs, generative AI tools that are there, AI as a service, and then build some products out of it, or have some application development knowledge on top of it, right? So that's for software engineers. Similarly, you have product managers, and specifically this term is coming around, which is AI product managers and etc. So those roles in the title itself have started calling it out. And then similarly on the job description as well, you can see the varied amount of scope of knowledge that is required basis the team, but then largely in a core product role, AI ML knowledge is being called out. Similarly for TPMs are supposed to collaborate across functional team. So understanding of MLA or the domain they are dealing with is beneficial for better collaboration and communication. So that's also being called out in these roles. And these roles are open across companies, right? Across tiers of companies. There's a tier 1, tier 2 to tier 1. Across all companies, such roles are open. Engineering managers supposed to lead a team, technical team. So the scope of knowledge or the depth of knowledge they should know MLAI is something varies depending upon the scope they will be having in their team about MLAI. Cloud solution architect, as the adoption goes up for MLAI, and these cloud platform push their MLAI products, right? So their understanding of the underlying fundamentals helps them basically understand the customer's need better and then align a better solution for them. Similarly, testing engineers using it for various kinds of automations and testing. SRE DevOps, managing the entire the deployment part, the production part, having an understanding of those tool sets, those entire pipeline and etc. domain knowledge helps them as well. Cybersecurity engineers, a lot has been talked about for AI security and etc. A lot of security threats due to the widespread adoption of AI, right? Both side, ethical, non-ethical. So they also have to sort of embrace AI ML skills to be on the preventive side of any such misfortunate events. So their role, and anyway, AI ML is a strong tool because large part of security engineers' job is to identify threats, is to identify some anomalies, right? And that's where machine learning techniques comes into the picture on crunching huge data sets and finding small anomalies. So that's the quick context, right? About how professionals are leveraging ML AI, and then what sort of demand or what sort of trend that we are seeing in the market. Now we can go ahead and sort of start with the main agenda, the panel discussion itself. We have Praveen and Marina here who are there to answer any of your queries around the agenda. Feel free to put up your questions in the Q&A, and in the meanwhile, we'll get started with the session as well. So, hey, hi, Marina. Hi, Praveen. How are you guys doing?
Hi, doing well.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all for joining in. So we'll start with you, Praveen. Would you like to, briefly mention about your own journey of being, let's say, AI enabled or transitioning into AI enabled, AI centric role, and then what made you, let's say, what attracted you towards this, and then how is it going?
Absolutely.
If you can please share.
I think thanks, Abhinav. I think a good question to definitely start off the session. For me, like interestingly, I would say the opportunity was there, but also I saw, a problem that didn't have a straightforward solution. Right? So one of the problems that we were dealing with back at Microsoft when generative AI was not a thing, like back in the traditional AI ML days, it used to take a lot of time for us to pitch a solution to a customer being a architect in the field, and then once we kind of come to an agreement that the solution is going to work for the customer, you go back and build all that infrastructure components and then demo it to the customer. So this back and forth conversation was taking a lot of time, and a lot of times this gap is sufficient for you to drop a deal, right? So we wanted to close that gap and wanted to fast track the whole infrastructure building exercise, right? And there was no solution that existed to speed track the whole architectural diagram to a real infrastructure, right? So as part of a hackathon, we tried doing something and then eventually got that running mainstream, which is you kind of scribble your whiteboard architecture diagram, and then we take a picture of that, upload it, have a coffee, and then come back. It just the infrastructure is provisioned on your cloud, right? So such a efficient solution. And why AI there was because the kind of automation that we were doing was not straightforward, right? We wanted some intelligence to be added to understand, okay, what is the scribble that somebody has done on the whiteboard, right? So it's basically out of necessity the technology was adopted, and then eventually we fine-tuned it as AI models got better and better, right? From statistical models to neural models, our solution also started working better because AI was doing it. Now we are at much I would say forefront of this AI technology, especially with OpenAI and ChatGPT and Google Bard and Facebook or Meta Llama and all that, right? So now most of the problems that we were dealing and we were spending a lot of time with can be automated, can be optimized to make us more efficient, right? And that is why you see more and more jobs that you were talking about earlier, right? That you see everybody wants AI. Why? Because want to solve a problem most efficiently, right?
Got it. And then in your overall journey, let's say upskilling yourself, would you like to share some thoughts over there? How did that go?
Yeah, absolutely. I think originally, right, when we start, obviously there'll be a question for all of us. Is it going to be hard? I know I don't have any background, right? I don't have any statistic background. I'm not a data scientist and all that, right? But then the reality is start from basics, right? Get your foundations built. And I think, one of the things that helped me also was I just wanted to understand, okay, what is this technology talk about, right? To understand whether it's even in my reach to learn and implement it as part of my job, right? And that's where I started step by step, very slow. But then once we got a hand of it, right, we now think about, okay, how do I evolve it further, right? How do I improve it, right? So I think it takes time, it takes effort. It's not like you're gonna sit on a weekend and then finish an online LinkedIn course and you say like, okay, I'm certified in AI. But rather you need to learn basics, learn theory, but also apply practically. And that is what has helped me. And I'm pretty sure a lot of candidates that we work with day in day out also had similar experiences from learning perspective.
Got it. Thanks, Praveen. So Marina, now would like to sort of hear your transformative journey as well. Right. So you you had a non-STEM background, and then from there made your way through MLAI. So would you like to share what all were part of your journey, and then how did it go?
Yeah, absolutely. So I originally studied political science and then ultimately public policy. I spent a few years working in nonprofits in the public sector and then small business before I got my master's degree. And I didn't really have a very clear vision of what I wanted to do career-wise. I was a bit stuck at the small business I was running. And so I decided to go to grad school for what I thought would turn into a career in public policy research. And it was during my master's in public policy that I even learned what data science or machine learning was. So I had never written a single line of code before that. I had a stats background, but that's about it. So it was during my master's program that I first got introduced to programming in R and statistics. And then from there, Python, deep learning, machine learning, NLP, that kind of stuff. So I was really introduced to it through school. And then I spent a couple years working at a data science consulting firm after graduation, and then transitioned into machine learning at Coursera from there. So I kind of accidentally fell into machine learning. It just happened to be that the first kind of like real job I got was machine learning focused. And it was lucky that that's something I really enjoy. So it turns out that that is the focus that I prefer. As much as the stat stuff was fun, I really enjoy building stuff. I like making the pipelines and the systems and the ML ops side of things and all that. So I kind of fell into it by happenstance a bit, but it was a lucky accident. Yeah, so that's basically how it went for me.
Got it. Got it. Thanks for sharing it. So we do have some questions now coming in. There is one question from anonymous attendee that most AI related openings I come across are asking for a few years of experience. Is that usually the scene? Usually what we have also seen from our job description analysis is that, okay, there is some amount of experience or usually being called out, but then the primary intent behind that particular entry is to see how much hands-on experience you have, right? So there are various ways where people portray their hands-on experience. They do self projects as well to come across, to validate or to sort of showcase their skill set, their large project portfolio across the problems of MLAI to be able, and most likely the relevant to that specific company to be able to increase their chances for a shortlist and all, right? So largely the section of work experience is basically asking to you to show your hands-on experience, your project portfolio, and then the kind of problems you're able to solve with the MLAI skill sets that you have, right? So I'll take Marina, your thoughts onto this as well.
Yeah, so of course there is always the desire to have experience, but that doesn't necessarily mean it has to be that you have to somehow get a data science or machine learning job before having had any experience. There are other ways to get that experience. So if you have the opportunity to do related work at your current position, that might be an option. If you can do projects on your own, that's a really great way to build your portfolio. There's also potentially opportunities to do things like volunteer work, where you can get that experience. So that experience is necessary, but there's a lot of different ways that you can prove that experience.
Got it. Thanks. Praveen, would you like to share your thoughts, what you have seen in the industry, how you have seen team building up and etc.?
Yeah, no, I think Marina hit it right on the bullseye, right? So a lot of times it's easier for you to find a relevant opportunity in your current role or in your organization, right? Where, like I said, the problem, there are so many problems that exist that can be solved with a more efficient solution, right? And you can actually use that as a practical project that you can actually do it over the weekends, like if it is not funded, right? But that will help you build the portfolio, but also to learn, right? Like these practical insights and practical experiences are what gonna matter when you go into an interview situation, right? And a lot of times, the questions that will be asked, which will take you a level deeper than your response, right? And if you have not really had a hands-on experience, then pretty much you're losing the battle there, right? So I would second Marina's thought in terms of find an opportunity that's easier, maybe within the team or within the organization, and then build on top of it. And again, I completely agree. one of the things that you can also do is do volunteer. A lot of smaller organizations, they can't really afford a full-time resource, but they're always looking for contributions in open source community, right? So you can actually build smaller GPT models and then give them away for free in your GitHub repository. And then a lot of people consume it, provide feedback, but also help you enhance those models, right? And that's how you build your portfolio.
Yeah, yeah. Got it, got it. And in this case, similarly, you can go the route as people go with competitive coding or data science algorithms as well, right? So they learn the skill and then they practice it on these platforms such as Lead Code, HackerRank, and then that portfolio of theirs, right? The kind of problems they have solved, the kind of this thing they have solved, acts as, let's say, something that they can be shortlisted, right? People do code, they lead code rank, their code chef rank in their DSA, in their resumes as well, right? So when it comes to, let's say, if you are trying to break into AML without any kind of prior experience, so one is basically, let's say, during your training, you do a good amount of projects. And then from there are platforms like Kaggle to further sort of take part in the competition, right? If you are not sure where to find these opportunities and etc., non-profit opportunities or some volunteer opportunities, Kaggle is, let's say, go-to for building any kind of portfolio there, showcasing your competitive skills as well. Those skills as well in a competitive environment. And then overall, the large part is, again, building a portfolio with various kinds of problems over there. Right? Cool. So we have another question from Rocky. I am a software engineer with 7 years of experience. I'm considering switching to ML, but I wouldn't want to get a drop in the compensation. Are there alumni similar situation who have switched that can share their experience? So yeah, Rocky, we have our some alumni who have made a transition and even got a good salary hike. So if you want to connect with them, I think your program advisor are the best person to be able to share some insights from their journey, and then see the possibility of connecting as well. Marina, in the first part of this questions, let's say the feasibility of a software engineer who's looking to transition into machine learning and AI role, and then what kind of compensation aspects they should be expecting, or at all they should be worried about getting a drop in the compensation. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of positions that are kind of an intermediate step. So there are, like you were saying, many different kinds of jobs in the machine learning and AI space. And some of them are, more data science-y, where you're just building models, maybe not doing as much deployment. Some of them are more focused on building production systems and would be a more logical fit for someone with a software engineering background to transition to. So I think there's definitely plenty of opportunities to find a position that's literally called software engineer, machine learning, and kind of make that transition that way, rather than going directly to something that maybe is like a machine learning engineer is going to have a slightly different skill set required. So I think that, yeah, that would be a good way to approach that. And then in terms of compensation, my understanding is generally ML-focused roles are similarly compensated to software engineering, or possibly even a little bit higher. So it would just be a matter of getting your leveling right, which I think is really the pro of doing a position that's kind of in between. So you're not going to be down leveled by switching into something completely different, but rather you could pivot to the same level and you would probably not have any issues with compensation. That's my instinct. I don't know compensation at every company, but
yeah, I mean, most of the Faang companies, right, their comp model works with levels, and it's not really like, let's say you work on the cloud platform versus you work on retail side. If it's the same organization and the same leveling, their salary range is pretty similar, right? So it also depends on, how well your interview went, and, number of years of experience, whether you're going to be hired at the top of the band, or, middle of the band, or lower end of the band. So there are various aspects to how your final comp is decided. However, again, don't look at ML like it's like a completely separate thing, right? Think about it as an additional skill that you have on top of your years of experience, right? It's like if you don't know coding and you want to become an ML engineer who's gonna write machine learning models, right? Then you don't have the foundation of coding, and just learning ML without really foundation of coding is not gonna fetch you anything. So it's a package, I would say, right? So, Rocky, to your question, with 7 years of experience, you are going to be put in that band who are in the 7 year, 7 to 10 year range, right? So, because ML is such a niche skill right now, obviously be at the par or above the par from a comp perspective.
Got it. And Rocky, feel free to, let's say, utilize platforms such as level.fyi. They have level-wise breakdown of salaries and etc. That will give you some data back sense over there, right? I think Blind also has quite a bit of salary data with them, so that helps, and you'll see mostly MLEs are paid even higher, if not equal, than software engineers. Then we have next question from Archit. I think this question, Praveen, you can take it up. Can you cover AI ML TPM landscape and expectation interview? Do we just need to know the AI ML cloud solution in system design, or does system design involves creating ML models, neural architectures, and etc.? So I think there is two part of these questions, where you can take it accordingly.
Yeah, I can start with the expectations in the TPM landscape, right? So number one, to see like how you have leveraged AI ML, either technologies or models in your TPM day-to-day projects, right? In terms of, have you leveraged AI or ML to, enhance your project tracking, or, creating roadmaps, or bringing more efficiencies into delivering your programs, right? On the other hand, it's about, what are some of the products that leverages AI ML technologies that you have a working experience on, right? So that's the expectation, is to understand what level of knowledge do you have, and what kind of hands-on experience do you have from a TPM perspective, right? So obviously you're not expected to code, you're not expected to, build something ground up like a MLE or a software engineer with, AI background, but you need to understand, why a particular model was used, why did this RAG model had this, XYZ data sets, right? And what were the different types of fine tuning that was done, and how did that impact you from either the product revenue perspective, or how did that enhance your customer experience overall, right? So that's practical applications are more important from a TPM perspective or a product manager perspective, in that matter, right? And to your other question, with respect to the interview itself, in the system design round, generally, you have like about 40 minutes, and I don't think you can just go and create like these ML models or neural architectures in that 30-40 minutes, but then a high level summary would definitely help. And also, generally the questions are not straightforward, like go and build a ML model for this problem. No, it's not like that, right? It's about a problem is very generic. How you incorporate your ML model, which is a component of your total end-to-end system design, is what is looked at, right? How did you integrate the AI component into the system design? So that's the larger focus, rather than asking you to deep dive into specific ML models and neural architectures. If it is PM TPM kind of role, I'll let Marina tell us, like, if there is anything specific that goes into an engineering system design round for a ML engineer.
Yeah, it's definitely a little bit more detailed on the actual implementation details, of course. So you would be expected to understand everything from like the actual deployment down to the details of the models and the trade-offs and how to evaluate them. Yeah, everything from like how you would figure out the best kind of model to how you would optimize it given your particular situation, make improvements, iterate, deploy, monitoring, the whole thing.
Got it. Thanks, Praveen, Marina, for answering that question. Archit, if you have any follow-up question, feel free to drop it in the Q&A. Next question we have from Swati. I have a background in tech, a master's in software engineering from 2 decades ago. I have been in tech curriculum dev for 7-ish years. How is the course relevant for me? I'll just take the initial brief of this question. Swati, if you have, let's say, already some experience in the tech curriculum, and specifically if it is about software engineering and etc. So mostly, let's say you are aware of the coding side of it, the technical side of it. The courses, the way you can leverage these courses to, since you have a strong background within or strong amount of experience within your current domain itself, is to get enabled into AI ML. And if you haven't taken, let's say, such projects, such curriculum development, right? So upskilling in AI ML can then help you move into teams where, let's say you are doing some curriculum development for AI ML projects and etc. Right? So that is one way you are able to do it. And then the other aspect would be where you want to, let's say, transition yourself into AI ML now with, a lot of years of experience, let's say about 20 plus years of experience. That is going to be a bit tricky, right? So we generally suggest folks with high years of experience to upskill and then find opportunities within their own domains and start, let's say, leveraging AI ML or contribute to or move to an AI centric role within their current domain itself, right? So that is something I would suggest. And in terms of the courses, I think we have all sorts of courses if you want to just be focused on applied generative AI. So we have a 3-month long course focused on the practical aspects of generative AI without going into the implementation details. And then we also have a 6-month long machine learning course focused on the core machine learning skills, Python, maths, classical ML, neural networks, and applied Gen AI. And then there is an end-to-end machine learning course as well, including all specializations, which is about an year-long course. And that course is usually sort of you can say recommended for folks coming from software engineering background, right? You can see all those program details I'll cover towards the end of this session, but then your program advisors also will be able to guide quite better, right? But in terms of outcomes, in terms of intent, we can align you better for maximum outcomes with our portfolio of courses, right?
I would say, to that, right? Because I think Swati is in tech curriculum development for 7+ years, right? And I think more and more the organizations that she's going to work with or work in, they would actually want their technical curriculum to include AI ML streams as well, right? Now how do you do that, right? So first you need to gain expertise. I believe, if first you gain that expertise, understand what are the various facets of AI ML, and then it'll help you fine tune your existing curriculum or even create a new one which would be AI ML focused. So that's how I see this course be more relevant to you, Swati.
Yes. And then essentially basically having a transition or maybe able to donate or maybe able to contribute to a AI centric project or be AI ML centric this thing, right? Got it. Next question is from Bindu. I'm also learning from basics and building up knowledge on top of that. I have a 10 plus years of experience in software engineering. Do I have to start as a junior AI ML engineer, or do I have a job if I do the job shift, right? So I think, Bindu, we have answered this question, right? Software engineering having a most relevant domain that you can have when it comes to transitioning to AI ML. ML engineering is anyway a lot of software engineering itself, but let's slight focus there on the ML side, on the data crunching side. There is you should not be worried about, let's say, starting from the ground, from the level 0 itself. You will have some leverage over there from your software engineering experience, and you can continue your learning journey as our experts also suggested to the questions of Rocky a few minutes back. Cool. If you have any follow-up questions, feel free to put it up. I'll just mark this question as answered for now. Swati has put in, how can I find volunteer shadow opportunities? So usually, Swati, I mean, if you have taken up a training program, right? So in this, let's say training program that we also offer. So in such a program, we do curate from our industry experts, from our engineers, hiring managers, a good amount of projects during the program, right? So you have a lot of projects which are built on top of real world data sets, let's say present in platforms like Kaggle and etc. To be able to give you that kind of an experience, that kind of an exposure, which comes after, let's say, working in a real project, right? So let's say some of our capstone projects, which are end-to-end projects, do involve you to, let's say, build a machine learning models from ground up and then deploy it on cloud, right? Cloud platforms such as AWS and everything, right? So that kind of a whole range of experience, exposure towards the entire ML life cycle till the deployment, you get, depending upon the scope of the course, obviously, you get during the courses or during any, let's say, structured online learning program. So you can obviously opt for those, have those curated projects done and etc. And when it comes to finding the opportunities, I think Marina, you had some experience around it. If you want to share some tips where to find.
Yeah, so there are organizations that specifically hire data scientists and ML engineers to work with nonprofits. So like DataKind is an example. There's also a website called Driven Data that has these little like kind of challenges for nonprofits or kind of similar kind of use cases. So you can find something like that that is kind of an organization who's already reaching out to you, or you can do it the other way around, where you contact organizations that you're passionate about. So there's no rule that says that you can't cold email someone and be like, hey, I really like your nonprofit. Can I help you with this? And you could suggest some different things you could potentially help them with. It could be something small, like maybe you're just getting started and you want to help them create donor profiles. So you do a quick little clustering algorithm or something. That's still going to teach you so much because you're going to have to deal with their probably very, very messy data, if they have any at all. Maybe you have to help them set up a database to even get started. Like there's a lot of work that you'll have to do to be able to manage this, and that's going to teach you a ton and potentially create connections down the road that could lead to positions or just give you a really good portfolio opportunity, something to talk about during interviews. So I think that cold reach outs and kind of pitching projects that you want to do can be really helpful, even though it's a little bit scary, but it's worth it.
Yeah, thanks. And so I think just be mindful of this thing, that reaching out for volunteering work and etc. That's not the first step. That is the step that you take once you have built your skills, once you have some
Definitely.
experience to show as well, right? Because the other person will only take your consideration, take your profile, if you are able to showcase your interest with the skill set that you have gathered, obviously, and then the current project that you have done.
Yeah.
Cool.
Other thing you can always do is if you go to Stack Overflow or GitHub communities, right? People have problems, right? And they're going to post,
Yeah.
have you run into this problem? Have you solved for this problem, right? You can actually solve it, right? And then respond back to the thread that, this is how I have solved it, right? So it's like there's a practical problem. You have solved it. It's like an untold volunteering, but you're helping somebody out, right?
Yeah, and I've seen people showcase their Stack Overflow profile in their online resumes or profiles as well, right?
Yeah.
Cool. Thanks for adding that. Next question is from Srinivasan. I'm a manager in oil and gas industry with STEM background and no coding. How do I make foray into this field? I have 30 years of experience in oil and gas industry. So with no non-coding experience, I think that gets a little bit trickier. Maybe I'll let Praveen first. You take a stab at it. How folks can basically, non-STEM folks or non-tech folks with 30 years of experience, right?
Yeah,
You can go
I
ahead.
would say like you don't need to solve the whole 90 yards, right? So all you need to do is, the way I look at it is it's always gonna be a team that is solving a problem, right? And coding is one part of the solution. First, you need to identify what's the problem that you're trying to solve. How do you solve it, right? You want to engage ML concepts in there. First identify the problem that is core to your oil and natural gas experience, and then what kind of the AI ML concepts fit into solving your problem. Like, for example, let's say, one of the things that I know for sure you guys do is like gas exploration, right? So, and that is done using by collecting a lot of data points and then coming up with, identifying based on those statistics whether a particular area has gas or not, right? Now, it might take like, a lot of calculations behind the scenes. However, if you have an AI ML model that's actually crunching that data, and you use those concepts to refine that data sets, now your exploration might be faster, right? It will be more efficient, and it'll actually give you more insights and signals, right? Now, somebody's going to write the code for all that fine tuning, building that model and all, but you as an expert can tell, like, what are those elements of that fine tuning, right? To even know that, these are the elements that I can call out, you need to have the ML experience, right? So you cannot just randomly call, these are the 100 different signals I want to incorporate into these models and then fine tune it, right? So you need to understand what is practical, what is not, given the scope of technology, and then pass it on to maybe a junior developer who has AI ML expertise, and then you can guide them on writing the code which is appropriate to your problem or the solution that you're trying to build, right? So I would say, coding is one piece, and I don't know if you want to go and start learning coding at this juncture of your career. Some people do, and that's great, right? But if you don't want to do, there are other opportunities. But learning fundamentals and understanding the scope of technology is where you start. And then depending on which path you want to take, you can definitely stretch into writing code or engaging or leveraging somebody else's coding skills to solve your problem.
Sorry, Thanks, Praveen, for adding that. There is next question from Guy. Says, what are the best roles in ML which a software engineer is applicable for? I have done a handful of machine learning projects. I'm pretty sure ML is too far of a reach. There is a follow-up question as well, or better to get another SWE role and try for try to dab in ML task in the company itself, right? So Marina would take your sort of help in this one.
Yeah, so I think there's a couple of options here. I think it's important to remember that not every job that's called machine learning engineer is the same. That's the same kind of concept for data scientists. There's some that just work in notebooks and some that are deploying full production systems. Similarly, there are some machine learning engineers that are really focused on model development, where you do need to have that really deep understanding of machine learning. And then there's some machine learning engineers that are really just focused on deployment and everything that happens after the model's actually developed. So I think it's perfectly reasonable to look for machine learning engineer roles that you feel like you might be able to do. There's nothing wrong with trying. And then, if they reject you, that's fine. You keep learning until at one point it sticks. But another option is, like you said, to try to find a software engineering role at your current company or another company that allows you to have a little bit of experience with machine learning and then slowly make the transition from an internal perspective. So I think those are both valuable opportunities.
Got it. Thanks. And that's usually how, we have seen a lot of students also adapt those strategy as well, right? So, the first step is anyway going to be build your current ML AI skills, build a good amount of project portfolio. And if you have taken, let's say, a formal sort of education or an online learning program, so that's pretty much sorted with the skills and with the capstone project that you do, the overall project portfolio that you build during the program. Interview prep is again the next bit, but then you start applying, right? And what people let's say generally do, they also start applying outside as well as in their internal organization as well, in their current organization as well, right? So trying to find a role internally as well as externally, right? So depending upon whatever converts first, and usually the internal transition are easier if you are comparing it to the external transition, because internally you had those connections, you have some trust building and everything. And then once you're able to get through, let's say internally and do some 1 or 2 projects there, add formally, change your title formally within your current company, then it becomes a lot easier for your next big step and possibly to a tier one company, right? So that's another strategy that we have seen folks take up. There's a lot of questions that are coming up. Farim has also asked about the volunteer work, right? So volunteer work, as I said, again, Marina also added a lot on that particular front, where to find it and etc. But then that usually is not the first step. First step is building the skills, building some sort of a project portfolio. You can find volunteer work as well as do some initiatives within the company as well, right? So that's also volunteer. That's also volunteering. That's also contributing to with your AI/ML skills into an existing project or improving some process within your company and etc. And that way you get praises in your current role as well as the kind of experience you're looking for, right? So that's one other dimension we can think of, getting some hands-on experience or industry relevant hands-on experience to make your profile even more stronger for a transition. Cool. I hope Farim and Guy that answers your questions. If there are any follow-up questions, please feel free to put it up. Next question is from Anurup. Is the knowledge of statistics required in AI/ML roles, specifically product management roles itself, right? Marina, I let first you share some lights, right? And especially statistics, obviously it is required, but then if you can mention, let's say, the scope in which it is required. People can do a semester-long course in statistics, but then if you can add that particular aspect to it, what is the scope of knowledge that is required usually, and then we'll take help from Praveen on the product management side.
Yeah, so it depends. I would say for most roles, the bare minimum is you need to have enough to understand A/B tests. So you need to be able to understand like everything that would go into being able to run and verify and analyze an A/B test. That would be your bare minimum. And then in some cases, you might be more focused on trying to model causality. And in that case, having a really good understanding of causal inference would be very helpful. Those roles might be a little bit more niche, but not always, especially if you're dealing with any kind of company that works a lot with data having to do with people, then establishing causality can be really helpful through non-experimental means. And so having some kind of background in causal inference is very good in that case. And then beyond that, I would say enough to understand basic, like traditional machine learning models like linear and logistic regression. So I would say that's about as far as you need to get started. Of course, there's always going to be benefit to stronger stat skills, but I would say that's like your baseline.
Got it. Praveen, would you like to now answer it from a product management perspective as
agree.
well?
Yeah, I agree with Marina. Obviously, you don't need to be an expert in statistics. You don't need to go and take a college course in statistics. But if you don't understand, the basics and how do you define what success looks like, right? And if you're, let's say, spending $1 million and you're getting like a 1%, 2% improvement in your efficiency after implementing all this, right? Then is that a good ROI for you, right? So similarly, what kind of result is considered a success for your particular situation? Let's say you are translating something and it's a public facing content. Is 70% accuracy good enough or 90% accuracy, right? So along with statistics, I would say understanding what your business requirements are and how does it impact your customer segment is going to be very important. So I would say at least have a foundational understanding of statistics, but then continue to build on that knowledge as you progress into these roles, right? Like, so you don't need to have everything on day one, but as you continue to, implement AI solutions, I would say try to learn as much as possible.
Got it. Thanks, Praveen. Thanks, Marina. The next question we have is from anonymous attendee. Will there be any certification that could help in AI/ML? I'll take this one. So usually, with AI/ML, as a skill which is, let's say, quite practical in nature, and specifically you can, drive some insight from the fact that the most amount of research or the most amount of advancement that has come in AI/ML has come in from the industry rather than from academics, right? So it's a pretty hands-on skill. If, let's say, someone who is looking to break into it or looking to adapt it, the preferred way is to focus on the skills more than the certification, right? Focus on the skills, focus on the project portfolio that we have been, let's say, talked about predominantly, largely in this session so far, right? So certification side, yes, it can help. Let's say if you are able to get some masters from universities and etc. Obviously, those add value. But then if you are boiling it down specifically to AI, ML, and then the kind of intent that you have in mind, the thing that will going to help more is learning from experts who are, let's say, day to day practicing those skills, and then doing projects, building project portfolio, building your skill set around in a practical manner. And that adds as a much rather, let's say, a good validation for your skill, the project portfolio, than a certification, right? So prioritize skill, prioritize projects over certification, specifically for AI ML, right? Same goes with software engineering as well, right? You may have heard Mark Zuckerberg's or these FANG companies founders saying they don't look for any university degrees and etc. That was for the reason because their skill was quite practical. That you can show them the outcome of your learnings, your projects, your skill set. You are able to validate it with the projects and etc. And that was the reason why they used to sort of not focus on the education, but rather focus on this part, right? So just a small anecdote from that side as well. We have next questions from Ravi. How does a day-to-day life in an AI/ML role look like? I'm a software developer. How much of my current experience will be relevant? So Marina, would you like to just quickly share some quick insights on this one, the day-to-day and the intersection between SWE and MLEs?
Yeah, so the day-to-day kind of depends on what phase of a project I'm in. So I might be spending a whole day doing research. Maybe I'm reading papers and talking to stakeholders and trying to write a scoping doc. Then I might take a couple of weeks to prototype a model. So in that case, I'm just working in a notebook. I'd be spending a lot of time writing SQL. I'd be spending a lot of time fiddling with my model, looking at different cuts, where it's performing well, where it's performing poorly, doing feature engineering, doing all that kind of work. It's very solo at that point. And then I might spend a couple of weeks actually putting the model into production. So at that point, we'd be typically working with something like Airflow, if we're just building like a simple batch model. And so just, yeah, setting up all of the pipeline steps, monitoring, and actually deploying and everything after that. So it kind of depends on the phase of the project. There's a lot of different kind of modes that we work in from time to time. And then there's, of course, always maintenance for existing stuff that's ongoing. As far as what would be relevant from your work as a software developer, there's a lot of overlap, especially everything once you get to the deployment onward phase. The most different part is going to be that like futzing with the model at the beginning. That's like the key differentiator. Otherwise, I think that there's a good amount of overlap. The one big difference that I have noticed, I've never worked as a software engineer, but speaking to software engineers on my team and otherwise, is there is a lot of ambiguity in machine learning, and you can often do everything right and still get a bad result. And so there can be a little bit of a frustration that happens, and you have to be kind of comfortable with the fact that there might not be one right answer, and you're going to have to try a bunch of things and experiment. So I would say that that's like the main difference in the way we approach things, is there's really still a lot of kind of science that's happening. And yeah, trying things out, experimenting, it's not always cut and dry with the right approaches. So.
Got it. Thanks. Thanks, Marina. Next question is from Umesh. What AI ML concept did the panelists found most helpful to switch into their job profile? Machine learning, deep learning, mathematics, or anything else? So Marina, if you want to start with how, let's say, which aspects of ML you started with your journey, and then how it evolved into more specialization, more skills in specifically AI ML.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I think that it makes a lot of sense to start with kind of traditional machine learning. So start with linear and logistic regression, because once you understand those, it becomes actually kind of trivial to expand to deep learning, because like logistic regression is basically could just be modeled as a very simple neural network. So I would say build up from there. The other reason to do that is still in production, we're using a lot of tree-based models. Not everything is neural networks. It's like tree-based models still work really well a lot of the time. So it's important to have a foundation on all those things and not necessarily just jump on the shiny new thing. So I would say start with traditional machine learning. And then also, since it's very accessible, just start playing around with generative AI. So I'm not saying necessarily like build your own LLM, you know, but most things can be solved with just prompt engineering. So getting really comfortable with what you can solve easily and quickly can also be a really good way, I think, especially right now, since that skill is so in demand, to just get your hands dirty and start actually building something neat. It's fun to do.
Got it. Thanks, Marina. Next question is from Nathan, and I will need Praveen your help with this one. So Nathan says, I want to make a move to full-time positions, focusing on AI ML. Not sure yet which specifically. He's sharing couple of bits about his profile. He has a PMP, PSM, IT PM for ops, a dev for 15 years, MS in cybersecurity, more policy than hands-on tech. His question is, can you all recommend any thoughts, leaders, or people I should follow to help me make the transition and stay current or ahead of the curve on this one, right? So quite a bit of
Yeah.
experience there and background there. So would you recommend something?
Yeah. Again, Nathan, there's no straight one path that will lead you to the same result, right? So there are like many paths that you could take and eventually get to the same North Star, right? Like I would say, like, start looking at what is get the foundational knowledge and start applying them on your day-to-day aspects of work, right? Because again, it'll be a chicken and egg problem, right? You want to get expertise and then switch to the role, or you want to switch to the role and learn on job. No, you can't do either, right? So it needs to be a continued progress and progression that would lead you to where you want to go. And especially since you have a lot of project management experience with your PMP, PSM kind of background. And specifically, I think I'm not sure what is your current role with the MS in cybersecurity. I'm assuming that you are spending a lot of time on the cybersecurity kind of roles right now. See how a lot of different companies are leveraging AI/ML models to detect and prevent threats. Right? How are they analyzing all these network traffic, your system logs, and building predictive models, right? So maybe that's a good start because you have the core knowledge from a pure tech perspective, and then application of AI ML models on your core technology can be a good starting point. And then if you like that, you can continue leading in that specific area. If you want to do something totally new, and that's fine too. Now you need to start somewhere, right? And then like I said, don't wait for gaining the expertise, but rather do a piecemeal approach. Have your core skill set, keep applying AI knowledge, and then start building your career in that path. I hope I answered all the various questions that were hidden in that big message.
Yeah. So Nathan, if you have any follow-up questions, please feel free to ask. Next question is from Rocky. What are the important concepts to know in MLOps? Marina, would you like to just call out a few areas in MLOps to focus on?
Yeah, that's a really big question. So it's a whole field. I have a book I would recommend. Designing Machine Learning Systems by Chip Wynn, I think, is a really, really excellent like overview of the fundamentals. But yeah, it's hard to necessarily pinpoint anything that you would need to narrow down out of all of it. But I would say, like, the simplest thing to get started on, if you're used to building models just like in a notebook, or you're just getting started and you're starting with little stuff, maybe just like monitoring. just thinking about that would be a good place to get started. So how can you actually see how well your model performs after you deploy it? There's lots of different approaches to this. So maybe that might be a good place to get started. But yeah, it's a big topic and there's tons to learn. So I'm sorry that I can't really narrow it down in this answer.
Thanks, Marina. Next question is from Ruchir. What kind of AIML exposure would be needed for an engineering manager role or engineering manager level? Praveen, would you like to take a stab at this one? Share some
Sure,
insights.
I think this goes back to Marina's response earlier in the session where she was calling out, how deep of an expertise is expected out of an engineer, right? Now, as an EM, even though you're not really most of the organizations, you're not writing the code, but you are the final reviewer or approver of the code and to make sure the code is in the right quality, right? So you definitely need expertise on that level. But more than that, right? So I would say, like, from an expertise perspective, you are defining the path for all your engineers. You're like the leader who is telling, what do we do here, right? So do we go with a particular LLM model, or you want to build it your own, or you consume something that exists in the market? So all these kind of decision making would require a lot of expertise, right? And you're as a leader, you're expected to lead the whole team with the right direction. And so the expectation is, obviously, you have you have understanding of the broader space and expertise in terms of making those decisions as well. So other than tech, the application of tech is also expected from an EM standpoint. If it is a pure MLOps or AIML role. Marina, did I understand it right, or is there anything else you would like to add there?
I think that covers it.
Thanks, Praveen. Thanks, Marina. Next question from Jyoti. I am a software engineer for 14 years, but stopped coding since last 5 years. So which path is good for me, PM, TPM, or software engineer with AI/ML? So I think from the eligibility side, Jyoti, you are eligible, or I think you won't have any problem if depending upon your current intent to find ways in any one of these areas, be it product manager, technical program manager, or switching into an AI/ML, AI engineering role as well, since you essentially coded for 9 years in your career, right? So a lot of projects and etc. That experience also, let's say, will give you some boost when you're applying for or getting some projects into AI/ML. So from that aspects, I feel you can pick any one of those. But then yes, depending upon where you want to take your career, because I think all three of these, or specifically two of these, right? One is that's a tech management side, another one is again in the engineering side. And my guess would be that your role currently is into management. If not, please feel free to add some follow-up on that. But yeah, from eligibility point of view, from your resume point of view, I believe you would have already have good amount of this thing leverage in any one of these fields. And then let's say, depending upon if you would continue coding, continue on that aspect that you have started your career with, AI engineering also suits. And if you are currently a manager, a tech manager or tech lead, so PM, TPM, I think is something which would again be beneficial. Praveen, would you like to also add a few things here?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, you said it right. Technically, you can switch to all of these paths that you mentioned, no problem, right? However, you need to determine, let's say it's a PM role, a pure product management role. Now, if you don't have any product management experience, how do you succeed in that role? Even before that role, how do you convince a hiring manager that you were doing software engineering for 14 years and software engineering plus engineering manager roles, now you want to switch to product management? Why should they get you in? Like, do you have any proven experience in that path? If not, is it passion that is driving you to that path? So these are some of the things that you would need to articulate well, and you have to first of all get convicted in terms of whether you want to switch to a different path from software engineering to a PM path, right? TPM, I would say TPM, EM are pretty similar. There is a lot of interaction. There is a lot of similar work that you would do. So it would be an easier sell. But for PM, if you have a strong conviction that you want to get there, I think we can definitely help you. How do we structure? Because I was an engineer for, I think, the first 12, 10 years, 11 years of my career. And then I switched to a TPM path and then eventually got into product management. So I know what are the real challenges that you would run into when you're trying to switch to different paths just because you want to get into AI ML and you don't want to compete with like 15, 20 years experience folks in that area. But the good news is AI ML is at least for majority of the cases is very new. So you're not really in that situation where you're competing with like industry experts, but at least it's a good opportunity for you to build strong foundation and then leverage your software engineering experience and expertise and add to that to continue in the whichever path you want to progress into.
Got it. Thanks, Praveen. Next question is from Archit. What the latest AI solutions from cloud solution providers suggest the best model itself? So how good is the knowledge on different models deciding the best model and fine-tuning it anymore? Marina, would you like to take up that particular piece?
Yeah. So it would be super cool if those worked as well as they say, but they don't. So I have never actually seen AutoML work that well. I've tried. But yeah, so far it's not replacing us anytime soon. Well, I hope. So there's definitely still utility in actually learning how to build these things yourself. And then the other thing is like, you could potentially use AutoML as a starting point. So maybe you use it to generate ideas like for potential feature engineering, or I think a lot of times you can also access the code that they use. So it can be like a way to, accelerate your code writing. But generally speaking, you're still going to need to understand the fundamentals all the way through improving your model, because it's not going to be able to do it for you.
And on top of it, right, even if you leverage it, a lot of times you are in a lot of organizations that we work with day in, day out are like, they have this data that they can't expose to cloud, right? And then there is some really proprietary data that cannot leave the data centers, right? So how do you do that? And now how do you train your models on this data? So you have to build an on-prem model, right? So you can always say like, I can build something like SageMaker, right? So, but you have to implement that in your own infrastructure and you need to train it and then you need to fine tune it. So there's a lot of work that actually goes in, right? Even though the CSP models are available, if you want to do something like very, simple and very, I would say, fun stuff to learn and implement, like maybe, you want to identify the best time to go on a team outing at the organization level. That's easy, right? You just get the calendar data, which is publicly available, and do it, right? And it's not a complex implementation. But if you want to really understand, the efficiency of each of your resource at the org level, you can't expose all the activities that your team is doing or your organization teammates are doing, and there's a lot of intrinsic value in protecting that that information, right? So certain things can be used to learn and fiddle around, but there's a lot of work that you need to do. And if you're building your model, then you own fine tuning it, right? You need to identify what kind of infrastructure, because the GPUs are super expensive, right? How do you determine what would be the best bang for buck, right? So there's a lot of work on top of identifying the model itself that you need to do, and you need an army of people to do it.
Noted. Thanks, Praveen, for adding that. Thanks, Marina. Next question is from Rajnikant. He has asked, I'm a Java technical architect with 20 years of experience. If I choose a career shift towards AI, what kind of roles can I target? So I think from a software engineering point of view, we have sort of answered this question. So Rajnikant, if you have, let's say, certain follow-up questions around it, please feel free to put it up. How much weightage do IK only projects and carry? What is the best way to showcase them in LinkedIn? Is there a template to showcase in the LinkedIn profile? So in terms of the weightage, I mean, there is no such weightage, no predefined weightage in all that you would look for. But these projects are again designed with industry experts, right? People or engineers who are working in Faang companies. They have put in a lot of efforts, formulating a problem statement around a given data set, and then creating scenarios to give students right kind of exposure into this field. And we have seen people with these projects cracking interviews and getting into Faang companies as well. So that's the kind of a project we have, and we are constantly are updating these set of projects. I know, to be able to to help people meet the need of the industry. When it comes to templating and showcasing it into LinkedIn, we sort of in all our outcome-based programs help students with interview preparation, and a part of it is basically their profile building, right? Where we have experts, technical recruiters from the ML/AI field, helping them craft their resume, craft the LinkedIn profile. And it's not just the project, the overall profile itself, how it can be sort of showcased in an effective manner, impactful manner, and more importantly, let's say company specific manner, right? So that your strategies, building some strategies on getting shortlisted, and etc. So that's on the project piece, right? Highly industry relevant. People have made transition doing those projects, and we have a separate section, dedicated section on interview preparation, as well as which includes the profile building part section as well, showcasing your projects and experience. So I hope that answers. If there is any follow-up question, please feel free to put it across. There's another question from anonymous attendee. How can we ensure we have enough compute resources to solve problems on a voluntary or personal basis? So I think that obviously depends upon the project requirement itself. But Marina, if you want to take up this question, which is asking basically how to ensure that you have enough compute resources to solve a problem, or a problem in any initiative setting or in personal basis.
Yeah, I think generally in the early stages, you're probably not going to be working with supermassive data. So you might be able to just get away with like the free tier of AWS, at least for a while. So plenty of the cloud providers have free tiers, so you can have like some amount of storage, some amount of compute for free. So that's probably the easiest way to do it. And then it's not super duper expensive to use like a small SageMaker instance, for example. So that's how I'd approach it.
And the harsh reality is, if you're asking that question, which means, when you're asking that question, when you have a volunteer project in front of you, and if you're asking that question, that means like you're not ready to deliver on that project yet, right? Because I think that's one of the fundamental understanding whether what kind of infrastructure do I need to even run this model, right? So which means like you still need to get some more foundational expertise before you can try to solve somebody else's problem. But if it's a personal initiative that you're trying to solve, it's totally fine. But again, somebody asked that question earlier: when are we ready for taking up these projects, right? And this is one of those instances which like you're not ready to take up somebody else's work yet.
Got it. Thanks for topping that up. There is a similar question related to that. Shall we wait for courses? So shall we wait till courses is over with IK before starting the work on building this particular piece? Yes, I think again, I believe there's people are getting confused with the suggestion here. Let's say the North Star metric, or the North Stack goal is to get into an AI ML role, right? And then the whole piece around, let's say, doing some voluntary work and etc. was suggested to build your work experience, right? Build a good project portfolio to be able to show your work, validate your skills, and etc. And then one pre-step to that is building the skills, right? So you first build your skills. Obviously learn, as Praveen has also said, right? That's not the last step. That's not the step you have to start where how do I make sure I have the compute resources. But the first step is you need to make sure you have the right kind of skills, right? You have solved, let's say, some easier problems. You have the strong foundation with maths. You understand the data. You are able to do, let's say, some simple thing as exploratory data analysis on the data sets that is given to you, right? So you have those skills. Obviously, with those skills itself, you'll be able to identify how to solve that problem, which algorithms to apply here. Is it something which can be solved with some regression models, or you need deep learning, or even some higher sophisticated machine learning models and a neural architecture for that, right? So that's all the skill part that you need before jumping onto any projects from, let's say, personal basis or from let's say outside basis as well, right? So build your skills, and if you have taken a structured program, so during the skills or while you're building your skills, that's quite hands-on. So you are already building a good amount of project portfolio there from beginning to advance, right? And those end-to-end projects itself should suffice for your transition. And then when people are at the stage where they have built skills, they have done good amount of projects, and when they are looking out, right? So they start applying, they are able to get through the job they are looking for, well and good. And in case feel that they may need more experience before applying, then as I was saying, some people, what they do, they look for internal transitions as well, right? Finding opportunities within their own companies, because that is a little bit easier. Getting an official title such as ML engineer, data scientist, or getting some voluntary work within their team, within the cross-functional team, help them improving some process, building some dashboards and etc. Getting some appreciation from there, some LinkedIn call out and etc. And then from there, making the transition, right? And one part of that is then, let's say, volunteering for NGO or startups, if you're able to find such opportunities, right? So that's I would say the very last step, when you have done all this and you feel you still need to go a little bit further, depending upon the kind of end goal you have in mind, the kind of dream role you have in mind, right? So that's the overall journey. I hope that clarifies it for everyone. Cool. We'll quickly move forward. There's another question for anonymous attendee. For an engineering manager wanting a Faang role, a Faang job, does it make sense to first switch with existing domain backend and some data engineering, and then learn on the side and switch later within the same company? I think it would be hard to switch directly to a new ML AI domain in a big company. I think that I think sounds about right. Praveen, would you like to share your thoughts on the same?
Hey, sorry, which question was it? I got distracted.
Yeah, so there is a question from anonymous attendee. They have asked for an engineering manager who is willing to, or who is looking to switch into a Faang company, right? Does it make sense to first switch into the existing domain, let's say into backend or data engineering, and then learn upskill in ML AI to move into an ML AI team as an engineering manager, right?
Again, there's no right or wrong answer here, right? So
Mhm.
I have seen people do that. That's one path for sure. The other path is you're kind of doing it in parallel, right? So for me, the way I look at it is any new skill or any learning that I obtain is in a 70-20-10 model, where 70% of the learning comes on job, 20% through trainings and attending seminars, like reading and all that, and 10% you learn from others, right? Like mentors, your peers, and all that, right? So with this model, right, so obviously the majority you learn on the job. So it's easier for you to switch with using your existing domain expertise, and then venture into a new skill. However, a lot of companies, like Abhinav was sharing earlier, is now requiring you to show some AI expertise, right? So if you don't have a straightforward mapping that is available in a Faang company, then you're kind of waiting forever, right? It's a loop that you're stuck in, right? So I would say, like, get both of them run in parallel. And if you find an opportunity, even while your AI ML learning is in progress, you can make a switch and continue learning, and then start application of that skill that you're gaining in your new Faang organization. But it's not like you don't need to wait to make a switch or make a decision on that front.
Got it. Thanks, Praveen. There's another question from anonymous attendee. How true is that the most MLAI roles requires you to hold masters or PhD? So Marina, would like your insights on this one.
Yeah, so it is true that most jobs, at least on the application or job description, will request a master's or PhD. And to be fair, pretty much everybody I've ever worked with has one. So if you have the ability to get one, it's not going to hurt, that's for sure. But if you can demonstrate those skills in other ways, you might be able to be the exceptional candidate. So it's not that you will never be able to get an opportunity if you don't have that, but it definitely helps.
I've seen the other side of the world as
Yeah.
well. You know, lot of my teams work on our AI projects don't have PhD in that domain, but they have actually, like you said, Marina, they have upskilled themselves over a period of time, and then they kind of work in tandem with PhD candidates in our client organizations, right? So if you are one of the things that will definitely help you, if you have an education that actually proves that you have AI/ML expertise, is to get you into an interview conversation, right? Because a lot of times your recruiters really don't know you, right? Your recruiting systems don't know you, and they're going to filter you out because you don't have that relevant certification or relevant education background. However, if you have that expertise and in some way you can get into that conversation, I don't think only having that is going to get you a job. So, yeah.
Got it. Thanks, Praveen, for adding that. There's another question from an anonymous attendee. Hi, regarding Python programming, I have a background in heavy data analysis and hands-on experience in Python and SQL. However, I do not consider myself a programmer. ML requires good programming skills. How long would it typically take to become proficient in Python? As a programmer, I have STEM background and worked on quantitative modeling. My total experience is 13 plus years. I think you do have the relevant background. I don't see much of a problem adapting Python over there. And specifically, if you are looking for Python for machine learning and you already do quite a bit of data science, so I don't see a very steep learning curve. I see an incremental learning curve over there. Marina would also like to hear your insights, your thoughts on this.
Yeah, I would agree. I think that you could probably progress pretty quickly. It's just a matter of seeking out the information and trying to get critique, I think would be a good option too. So if you can get your code reviewed by somebody who does have stronger, like, maybe a software background, that can be really helpful. And then just making sure that you're really holding yourself to a high standard as you're developing models is going to make a big difference. You don't necessarily need to have like deep programming skills to be a good ML engineer. Like if you're working with Python, it's probably okay to have only a cursory understanding of object-oriented programming, for example, at the beginning, and develop those skills over time. I think the more important thing is having very, very strict requirements on yourself about like clean code, making everything well documented, legible, and caring a lot about efficiency. So those would be the things I would focus on.
Okay, thanks, Marina. Next question is from Vijay. Sorry.
Abhinav, sorry, I need to jump to my next meeting, but it's fantastic having this conversation with you and Marina. And thank you everyone for fantastic questions, actually, some of which actually gained me some knowledge from Marina as well. Looking forward for more of these sessions, and hopefully some of you in the classes that we run here at IK. Thank you.
Thank you, Praveen, for your time. Thank you. Cool. So we'll move forward. There's a next question from Vijay. I'm in the enterprise world for 15 plus years, where I see bureaucratic decision made against build versus buy and lower engineering levels. Do I have a say in this? I do not have a say in decision making. How do you go about convincing your leadership in these scenarios when I want to try building ML experience internally within an organization? So Vijay, as Praveen was also mentioning in a few minutes back, that it's hard to sort of give you one specific path in a scenario like these, or in the lack of context. But overall, if you are asking in general, right, let's say convincing your leadership or convincing your managers to allow you to able to, let's say, take some MLAI initiatives or any initiatives for that matter. I think the biggest thing over there is to showing your intent, your good intent, formulating your proposal better, right? So if you are trying to improve some process with AI ML, or if you want to sort of build some internal tools, some dashboards for some better efficiency and etc. So I think your research on that, the current skill sets that you hold, your ability to sort of relate your skill set on the work that you are trying to do, or the you're aiming to do that, or you're aiming to do, what initiative you're aiming to take. I think that proposal itself will make a big difference, or will help you a lot, in these scenarios when you are trying to convince you to take some initiative internally. Marina, if you have a few things over here, if you would like to add.
Yeah, I think in general, it's also just good to make sure whenever you're pitching that you are able to really quantify the ROI and make sure that that aligns with the business objectives. And then I think it would also be relevant to highlight how it is important for the business that their employees get these skills, because businesses that don't, kind of like stay on top of these things are going to fall behind. And that means that, their employees also need to have these skills. So I think I would try to highlight like the long-term benefit for the company of allowing you to explore a little bit now, and how that can help them with their, primary metrics moving forward.
Got it. Thanks. Next question is from Mandar. Are tier 1 organization looking for domain expertise, healthcare, entertainment, retail on top of tech experience for AI roles? How high do tier 1 companies value domain expertise for tech candidates? So Marina, having worked on a streaming platform, would you like to sort of answer this particular piece?
Yeah, I think it's a nice to have. So you would be a more competitive candidate, for example, if you, wanted to work in a like healthcare specific data science or machine learning role, if you had that experience, but I don't think it's a requirement. I didn't have any, specific experience that was relevant to my role when I was hired at either of the past positions. It's just more about being someone who is able to learn quickly. So I think it's a nice to have, but don't let it hinder you from applying if there's something you're interested in, but you don't necessarily have that domain expertise. Just make sure to prep a lot before the interview.
Got it. There is a question from Ashwini about what advice will you give for model governance? What would you sort of answer this question with?
I think that's also a really big question. I think it would depend a lot on your specific like use case or problem. Like, are you concerned with like model management throughout the model lifecycle, or making sure that you adhere to like data and user privacy and that kind of thing? So I'm not sure that I will be able to answer this in enough detail without a little more context.
Sure. Thanks, Marina. There is a question from Guy. I believe this is a follow-up question. I was looking at a general SWE prep course. I would like to target an hybrid SWE and ML role. I have working knowledge in machine learning. My current project is building a deep learning image classifier to help productivity on macOS. Is there a course targeting a hybrid role? Guy, yes, I believe we do have a course which aligns with your intent. That is the Edge Up course, which has applied generative AI and the software engineering interview preparation, right? Edge Up SWE is something which I can recommend. I'll just share a few things about it. But then if you want to know more about this course, I think you can reach out to our program advisor and they can align you better. But a little bit about that course. That course is designed for software engineers who are looking to leverage generative AI, and more specifically applied generative AI. Right? Maybe they don't want to go as much hands-on as a machine learning engineer would do, because you're still targeting a software engineering role at a core, but then some added knowledge on how to use AI as a service, or overall understanding of AI, its use cases, where it can fit, so that it can act as a, let's say, a stepping stone, or the first step, let's say, on the deep dive. You are doing quite a bit of project yourself, so I think there is a strong background that you already have for hybrid role. So applied Gen AI, practical knowledge of generative AI, combined with the interview preparation for software engineering, which is specifically targeted for tier 1 companies. I think that is the course that I can best recommend you, basis the intent. So you can look for knowledge about that from our program advisors, right? So course name is Edge Up Software Engineering. Okay. There's a last question from Gayatri. I am a software architect just starting my AI ML journey. Deploying small application is hugging face and still learning. Can you talk about challenges or pros and cons between starting a startup versus switching into an AI ML corporate career? Never had any experience with startups, but really thinking about it and AI ML now, and got a few small ideas. So Marina, do you have any experience with startups and comparing it with, let's say, an ML career? What would you like to give any insights?
Yeah, so I've never created a startup. I've never worked at a startup either. So I don't have a ton of practical experience with this. But I will say a benefit of working on a team is that you can learn from others. So if you're just getting started, you might really benefit from having, critique and feedback from other people who are more experienced. On the other hand, at a startup, you're going to learn too, because you're going to have to. But you might it might be a little bit slower to learn how to do things right, because you're going to have to do a lot of trial and error. So yeah, that would be kind of my takeaway, is how much do you want to have feedback and mentorship from other people? And I would have that be a key consideration.
Yeah. Got it. So as a software architect, I believe switching into an AI ML career, obviously, with the right kind of skills, right kind of project, would be something feasible, right? You can target that particular piece. But I believe startup is not the core expertise of the panel right today. So yeah, won't be able to share much mentorship or suggestions over there. Yeah. So if happy to help, Gayatri, if you have any further questions on especially the switching part. Yeah. Yeah. So on that note, I'll just quickly, I've been able to establish a quite a lot of details, right? Quite a lot of details in terms of what is your career intent. And so a lot of questions were coming. I want to transition this and that. And then our panelists as well have mentioned that there is no one set path. There are paths that you can take basis your journey so far and maximize the experience that you had so far. On top of that, let's say adding AI ML skills to maximize your outcomes, right? So leverage your current experience with the right kind of up leveling, right kind of skill set, and then getting an outcome which is more suitable or more feasible for you, right? So around that, we have, quite a lot of up leveling solutions depending upon the needs of the working professionals. Some of these are much more tailored for domain specific roles such as software engineers, PM, TPMs, engineering managers. So these are some of our courses. The first course is about the Edge Up course. So Edge Up course is something which we were sort of just mentioning as well. So Edge Up is for folks who want to be AI enabled in your current domain, right? So you're a software engineer, or engineering manager, product managers, a test engineer, and so on. And then if you want to, let's say, leverage generative AI, specifically generative AI in your current domain. So that is the course that you take. This is the course which has two parts. One is the applied generative AI part, which I was just mentioning a few minutes back, talks about the overall machine learning first, and then focuses on generative AI, the practical aspects of generative AI and how you can utilize it in a AI as a service-based setting and build some solutions around it to solve complex problems. There are domain-specific classes within generative AI as well, such as how a product managers will leverage generative AI for AI product strategies, and engineering manager would do it for build versus buy decisions, for overall architecting and overall applications, and planning the resources, the AI integrations, all the considerations, and similarly a TPM and so on. And then there is a domain-specific interview preparation tailored for your own domain. We offer them into 17, 18 different job domains for you to get that next level, right? Up level yourself in tier 1 companies, right? So you stay in your own domain, get AI enabled, and get into tier 1 companies as your next big career step, right? The next course that we have is the machine learning course. Now here, this is the course where you want to learn essentials of skills into AI ML with domain specializations of your choice, right? So you are looking to transition into a machine learning role, data scientist role, AI engineering role, data analyst, business analyst role. Why there are a lot of career outcomes? Because we have specialized electives, right? Specialized electives in each of these areas that you can pick basis your choice and then make a career transition into these fields, right? Now, again, all these courses that I am mentioning, and especially these transition courses, which is, let's say, the third and second course, the machine learning course and the advanced machine learning course, and even the data science course, all these courses follow the same learning strategy where you first focus on building your skills, because that's the first step. You build your skills, get your fundamental fundamental strong. And because this is a program which is designed with industry experts, it focuses a lot on building hands-on expertise. You do assignments or hands-on activities throughout the, let's say, 6-month duration, 12-month duration. There are on top of that dedicated projects, right? Dedicated projects, mini projects, capstone projects, which help you build that strong project portfolio. And all these projects are designed with real world data sets from platforms like Kaggle and etc. And has elements which are and let's say help you get an exposure to a scenario how these problems are solved in the industry. So for example, our advanced machine learning course, we do have projects which you are supposed to sort of deploy in the actual cloud platforms such as AWS, with tools such as EC2, Docker, Kubernetes, and everything, right? So that's kind of extensive projects we have designed to gain that experience within the course itself, so that you're able to directly build that resume in a overall way, right? Work experience, skills, get the interview preparation as well. All of these courses have a dedicated interview preparation section, and then get into your dream role, right? So that's the overall idea. And this is the first course on the domain switching part, which is the machine learning course. 6 months course focuses on the core ML AI skills. Then we have the end-to-end machine learning course as well, which covers all specializations of machine learning and data science, let's say, within the period of 12 months. So the advanced machine learning course, for example, has starts with Python, has mathematics, has classical ML, deep learning, and within deep learning, you also learn computer vision, natural language processing, advanced generative AI, where you learn how you build large language models, and specifically multimodal large language model, both text to text, text to image models. MLOps is also included in a practical setting. We do give you AWS credits, AWS accounts, where you are able to practice deploying models on cloud itself. And as I said, throughout this, you're doing assignments throughout the year, right? Again, building a good amount of hands-on experience. And then there are about 10 projects that are there, and then you can pick best 3-4 projects for yourself to build your portfolio over there, right? So that's something is taken care of within the course itself, right? So you have the advanced machine learning course, which you take to transition as a deep learning engineer or MLAI engineer. And then you have a data science course as well. People who are specifically looking for a data science type of job roles and etc. have inclination towards a science, or doing driving business insights with data, right? So between the machine learning course, between the 6-month long machine learning course and 12 months long advanced machine learning course, the idea is that if you are someone who is just starting off with MLAI, right? Let's say you don't have a software engineering background, the suggestion is to go for machine learning course first, because this is where you will learn the essential skills, right? And once you have focused or mastered those essential skills, and the program is designed in a way it is self-sufficient to get your initial transition. And then you build specializations or more further sort of skills later down the line, right? So we don't confuse you with all the necessary details or all the details that are there, all specialized on ML AI at once. We focus on industry tailored curriculum in this course, which helps you break into AI ML, right? And especially for folks who don't have a software engineering background. If you are someone who has a software engineering background, obviously you have the experience which is suitable for you to transition. So you are suggested, or this advanced machine learning course is for you, which has all specialization, covers things in much more detail, and covers all specialization to be for you to be able to sort of get that next career transition, right? This is something in an overall course suggestion, sort of a chart or a flow diagram, if you will, right? So if you are someone who is coming from a tech professional, you're a tech professionals coming from SWE, software product manager, TPM, EM, or cloud background. So for them, if your intent is to switch to ML or DS roles, so you can go for our flagship machine learning course. This is a 6-month machine learning course, or advanced machine learning course, or even our data science course, if data science is your career intent, right? So you're eligible for all kind of switching, domain switching courses in a way, because you do have technical experience, hands-on coding to some extent, right? If you are someone who is looking to get AI enabled, then apply GenAI along with domain interview preparation. This is our edge up course, right? So edge up course is your way, right? So domain switching, go for flagship ML. If you have a 6-month timeline, go for advanced ML. If you are coming specifically for software engineering role background and can spare 12 months learning all specializations. And if you are specifically looking for data science, go for AIDS. If you are looking for just to get AI enabled and move in your same domain in the next big company with AI/ML skills, go for our edge up courses, right? If you are someone who's coming from STEM background, don't have a coding experience, as I said, if you want to break into AI/ML, then you can go for our flagship machine learning course, which is a 6-month machine learning course. Or if you are looking for a data science sort of a transition, you can go for our AI data science course as well. If you are an AI tech professionals, right? So data science or machine learning engineers, we do have courses for you, which are there for you to build further specialization in your field. So specifically, let's say if you have someone who haven't worked in generative AI, right? Who don't know, didn't have a chance to work in large language models and how to build them and etc. We do have an advanced generative AI course for you. Similarly, there are further specialization within ML, ML ops, natural language processing, computer vision. So you can take these courses to further enhance your skills into the field. Right? So that's all. And if you are looking for some more sort of information on these courses, you can join our enrollment webinars. You can find the details on the website. If you are already in touch with your program advisors, you can talk to them. They can share more details about the course. If you have any follow-up questions, obviously they'll be able to handle it better with all the experts and everything. Right? So that is all for today from our side. There is one quick question on the Q&A from Harish. Being a software architect, should we target ML engineering roles since architecting ML project would be hard during the transition? Yes, Harish, I think the first step would be to go for some machine learning engineering role itself. Directly an architect transition won't be that much feasible, right? Marina, if you would like to sort of maybe add your insights on this as well, that would be really helpful.
Yeah, I would agree. I think that targeting an ML engineer is a good first step.
Yeah. Cool. So thanks Marina for your time as well. With that we have answered all queries. I think we stretched the session a lot, but then there was about 40 questions that we answered, and I think each one of these questions were answered with quite a lot of detail and insight from both you and Praveen. So I am very hopeful that it would have been very helpful for all our attendees. Thanks a lot for joining in. Any closing remarks, Marina, from your side that you would like to share for our attendees?
Yeah, just thanks for having me. Thanks for asking good questions, and yeah, really had a good time.
Right. Yeah, same here. Thanks a lot, everyone, for staying up late as well. Thanks, Marina, for your time. Looking forward for these sessions in the future as well. Cool. Thank you. We'll just stop.